Lovely to see you for this Overview and Scrutiny Committee meeting for the 23rd of September 2025. Please be advised everybody present that this is a public meeting and it's being live streamed on the Council's YouTube channel. We start off with declarations of interest. Which there appear to be none. Great. Apologies for absence and substitutes.
Yes, Chair, we have apologies from Councillor Ward with Councillor Orber as substitute, Councillor Creamy Guvanlu with Councillor Beadle as substitute, and Councillor Clancy and Councillor Murrell.
Thank you, and thank you for the subs for being here. Let's start with the minutes of the Review and Scrutiny Committee meeting held on the 9th of September. Seems longer ago than that now, but perhaps I've had a busy couple of weeks. Any comments to make on that? We had quite a discussion about one or two items, but they seem in order. Everyone happy that they accept that they're a fair record? Wonderful, thank you. Chairman's announcements, none other than to say that obviously with regard to the meeting is split into two parts because we're dealing with financial exempt matters. I know some of you have got questions that you might want to ask, but try and very much get everything that you need to say at the beginning out of the way. I know Corinne will explain why they've been separated, the elements, but we will save anything back that might need to be. And if you ask something which touches on something, don't be surprised if Sinead just says, can we save that for the later part? We move straight on then to, also public speaking. Should at least announce if there is any public speaking. No, after the disaster we had with the last meeting where somebody unexpectedly wanted to speak and just ruined the whole tone of the meeting. I am talking to you, Councillor Beadle. No, it was with my permission and we all wanted to hear what he had to say. We hoped at some point he'd have something useful to say. Still, he's disappointed us. So, he just wanted to speak. It was actually less interesting than making it sound, so I'm sure others will feel it. So
you build your chair and then knock me down.
Yeah, exactly. So let's move on to the work programme, and Sinead is going to talk about that.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So there's been a couple of amendments to the work programme since this last came to you as a committee. So you'll see that the annual review of registered providers, we had a request from the Assistant Director in that area to defer that until December because the officers just need a little bit more time to gather all the information from the registered providers. So that is the next available meeting. And the same with the housing allocations policy. We have deferred this with approval from the chair to May 2026. So that service only came into operation in March and the team wanted a full year's worth of data to be able to bring back to the committee and present an update on that policy. So you'll see that has been amended. And finally, sorry, a few updates on the work programme this time. Finally, the Director of Resources requested, due to some internal resourcing issues, to move the return on investment on the Horizon report back to your next committee meeting. It was due to come today, and that has now been moved to the next available meeting, which is in December. And then finally, we are just in the process of arranging the budget workshop date. We are currently looking at dates in November, but I will email out to you all once we've got a confirmed date for that. Thank you. Yeah, there were points that Sinead made about wanting whole year data. And when we've looked at the benchmarking of how we've been doing, like the previous meeting, which we had a big discussion about, we always know we get much more accurate data when we're really comparing data from a whole year worth of information rather than just a snapshot of a quarter, because we know how quarterly things can differ within the council and the workload. You know, do you think about waste collection, how that differs? So that's why I was keen to take the advice that we should delay that. Okay, let's move on to the customer experience programme and Corinne.
Thank you. So the Customer Experience Project aims to modernise service delivery, increase customer experience and satisfaction and reduce operational costs for the council. The paper that you have in front of you today provides an overview of the project so far and the detailed results of the procurement exercise and costs. Obviously, there has been a shift in the position since when the paper was written and submitted, because projects like this run quite quickly. But the paper that you have in front of you is reflective of what we knew at that stage. So looking at the project controls and to provide an overview summary of the project position, you'll see that the project as a whole is rated as amber, and that is largely due to the shift in timeline, which is detailed further on in the report. So taking each project control in individuals, so budget control being the first, that is currently green with a favourable variance on the budget. So you'll see the variance is based on core costs, so core costs of the platform and those that were set out in the contract as part of the procurement. We do know that we'll want to explore some optional modules in terms of the ability for optional modules to help support the speed of delivery, so things like sort of case management or modular upgrades, things like bookings. We do know we may want to explore some of those. So at this point in time, we are not proposing that sort of favourable variance is necessarily going to be an underspend. It is likely that we will spend some further money based on that. We're just having the conversations with the suppliers to understand of those optional modules, which ones may we like to take. So the finances that are set out in the report are the finances based on the core costs of the contract. The timeline control, so that's amber, and I alluded to that earlier, with some project delays, and they are detailed in the report from 3.11. But as a sort of high level overview, we have a 10-week delay on the original timeline with a new contract award date of that point in time, which was the 8th of August. We have now awarded the contract, and in 3.11 of that report, you've got detail on why we experienced that 10-week delay, largely due to some requests through the procurement stage of the supplier for extra time to look at legal T's and C's and the volume of clarifications that came through as part of that procurement exercise. So in terms of procurement, we completed a competitive procedure with negotiations, and that's detailed in terms of the process and the criteria that is set out in the report from page 17 onwards. This type of procurement route often takes between 12 to 18 months to complete. It's taken the project team 10 months, and that was from supplier selection stage. I mentioned earlier the contract has now been signed and the timeline has been re-baselined. So now we know what we plan to deliver and have got a bit more detail on the scope. So the timeline that you see in your pack is the implementation plan based on the submission at that point in time. So the tender submission from the supplier. In terms of the final control, so you've got the resources control, that is currently rated as green. So we have the project mobilised with all of the project resources assigned to that project and those posts filled. So we are not carrying any risks related to resources control at this stage. I alluded earlier that the implementation plan that you have in your pack is the plan that was provided as a draft plan based on what was known in the procurement and the key milestones at that stage. So the supplier would have made a number of assumptions in that plan. What we have done since writing this report and working with the supplier since contract award, we have now received an indication of what that new re-baseline timeline looks like, and that is a shift from what you'll see in the implementation plan being December to February. Now that scope has been revised, and I'm going to pause there because I think the extra detail sits under the exempt papers. Thank you.
Thank you. I know that Paul has got some questions. I know he hasn't volunteered, but Paul, do you want to go first since you were telling me earlier?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Corinne. I've just got a few points till we get to the exempt bit for clarification. If we look at 3.2, it says there, project has completed procurement and the contract has been awarded. If we look at 3.3, it says the contract has not yet been awarded. Has the contract actually been signed with the supplier? Oh, sorry.
So yes, the procurement has been, at the point of writing the report, the procurement had been completed, the contract had been awarded, but it hadn't been signed. And the reason why it hadn't been signed is because there was some clarifications needed on the supplier side to refine that contract before it was finally signed. So yes, it is now signed, sealed and into initiation.
Thank you. I see that we've got 3 new PM staff appointed. Well done. Very difficult people to get. Are their costs included in the costs of this project? They are.
Yes, so looking back at the business case, there was £765,000 in total ring-fenced for resource and supplier transition costs. So all of the costs that you see in terms of the budget versus the forecast in your paper are accounted for these additional temporary resources that have been brought in to deliver the project.
Okay, thank you. And the last question I've got, you'll be delighted to hear. If we've got PMs, and there's a comment about us also getting programmers for integration work, is this actually a district council project, or is it actually a supplier project and we're backing up the supplier?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So the scope of our supplier is to provide us with an out-of-the-box functionality with some processes built within that. So things like your platform configuration, things around some of our key high-demand processes. Some of them will have integration, some of them won't. So we tried to pick a mix of processes that can be contained within the CEP and others that will give us the skill set to be able to absorb integration knowledge and platform configuration knowledge from the supplier. So it's a bit of both. So what we will get handed over to us at the end of February is the out-of-the-box functionality with our specified processes. That will then mean we have to take that on as a council to develop out further the rest of phase 1 of the rest of the processes. So if we take waste, for example, we might say the platform gets handed over to us in February. That has 2 waste processes on it, and it may be bulky waste and it might be missed bins, for example. We have a training and transition plan that sits alongside that, where our developers on our side, our project managers, our Scrum Master and the project team themselves will be absorbing that knowledge to then at the point of handover continue to maintain and build that platform for the rest of the services that we will onboard. So it's a bit of both. So supply will do a lot of the work up front in terms of platform configuration for us. We'll absorb the knowledge and work alongside them so we can then work independently of the supplier. But what we have factored into the project plan is 12 months worth of hypercare. So that's it, support in addition to the baseline support that we will get across a 12-month period. So it's not completely handover, off we go. There is still that working relationship.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Who else would like to ask something? Paul, if only the Pauls are allowed to speak.
Hi, Colin. It's a pretty... there's a lot of technical stuff in here which you might have to explain to me a bit, so apologies for that. Can you just... I'll start with the 3.4, the revenue figures, which we can talk about. Can you just explain to me, the capital budget is actually a resource budget. The revenue budget, I'm not quite sure what revenue a council will be having, so you might be able to just explain to me how that figure comes about. Just give me a bit of where the figures come from.
Yep, so capital budget mainly is resource, but there is 110k included in that, which was ring fenced in the business case for supplier transition costs. The revenue budget is solely for our ongoing costs, so things such as the licence cost for the platform. When we integrate, there'll be ongoing integration costs. And for example, if we decide to buy optional modules, you will have your capital setup costs and then ongoing costs related to them optional modules. So that's the revenue cost that you see there.
And that's for both South Norfolk and Broadland together. Thank you. That's the first question. 3.6. I was a bit confused, but I think you've explained it to me now. The capital budget is mostly resources. I get that. 3.15. The benefits. I am lost on that sentence there. Can you just explain what that means? Sorry.
Yeah. So currently, the problem that we're trying to solve is that we have a lot of manual handling in the back office. So I'm a customer, I have a service request that goes into an email inbox, of which a member of staff will pick up, and they will do a lot of work to type that up into a system. Now, that's in absence of being able to actually automate some of that. So there's a lot of manual handling that's happening in the background that's being done by staff. So what we're planning to do with the platform is actually make some of that automated. So it will come through on a web form and go straight into the back office line of business system, and it removes the need for somebody to sit and process an application or that information that currently goes into an email inbox. So by doing that, in the business case, we anticipate that will mean that benefits will be released in terms of FTE related to automating some of those processes.
FTE?
Fixed term equivalent, so people.
Well, last question. Sorry. So I've got on the risk register, which we'll talk about in audit, got hacking is a big risk. So how are you taking that into account? Okay.
We can say that.
With the time control, why was it set to be finished by the time it was if it normally takes 12 to 18 months, and you've managed to do it in faster time but actually behind time?
Yeah, and I don't think there's any other reason than it's a learning for us. I think we hadn't anticipated the amount of legal terms and conditions and I guess negotiation on terms and conditions that would need to be a part of that process. Myself and the project team have never been through that type of procurement before, and we had a good procurement team supporting us, but it was just our learning.
Can I just ask, I know it's the sort of hypotheticals because we don't know what LGR will look like, but is there a danger, well, we don't know when, even if we could say it's going to be X number of councils, we still don't know exactly. So is this all happening? And I know we may be revisiting something we talked about in earlier meetings. Is this all happening with the intention of, right, we don't know what it looks like, so we're just going ahead and we're doing what we're planning to do? Or is there some questioning of decisions and spending at some point on this route? Because it just reminds me of when I went on holiday in the summer, we stayed at a hotel in Heathrow and they told us it was going to be done up. And we went back and it hadn't been done up and it was a bit run down, and we went. And I said to one of the members of staff, why hasn't it been done up? And they said, oh, because in 2 years' time it's going to be flattened for a new runway, so we're not doing it up anymore. And they've had to go, right, we don't need to spend money on this because there's a danger it'll all be flattened and disappear and gone, and someone else will come in and sweep it all away and all the good work we've done, and we may end up inheriting a worse system, or perhaps inheriting some other council's already implemented system. So is there some, you know what I'm saying, are there some fail-safes or stops where we're going, are we going to, and I'm not going to mention figures, but are we ever going to reach this point on our expected journey because actually we're going to stop here and all this effort has gone in and never got us there? And I appreciate there's different elements, but there might be some elements which are at the back end that we won't get the benefits from until 2029, and when this council will never get to 2029. Sorry.
Yeah, and I guess that's a risk for any project that we do in the organisation. I think we have considered what the costs would look like if we did nothing. So if we didn't, and this was an options appraisal that we sort of considered internally. If we did nothing, that would still have a cost to it because your demand is continuing to increase. You would need more people to service that demand. So although on the surface it looks like doing nothing has no cost, it still will have a cost. I think in terms of the local government sort of landscape, we are not the first in our journey of implementing something like a customer experience platform. Other councils already have them, and neighbouring councils already have them. I think we had a red flashing customer satisfaction indicator that clearly was underperforming, and through interim change that has now increased in terms of its rating. But I don't think we're in a position to be able to stand still. So in terms of, have we considered that as part of the project? We have, and the agreement was that we would continue implementing the CEP.
Stuart, you indicated you want to say something.
I would like to first of all thank the assistant on my side for turning the red light on. So I understand what the officer is saying, but the last time we went through this exercise of local government review, which was in the noughties, which came to nothing, we did actually take the view as a council that we wouldn't update our IT systems. And when the local government review was shelved at that time, we found as an authority that we'd actually saved quite a lot of money, and the service indicators were adversely affected. So I understand what the officers are saying, and it is obviously as a risk, but maybe we don't do as much as maybe is suggested. Thank you, Chair.
Anybody else got anything they'd like to say? Yes, Tony.
Karen, just along those lines of what's been discussed, are you aware of any early termination clauses that may cost the council financially as far as the awarding of the contract is concerned? I know we've got a supplier, but contract hasn't been signed as yet. Are you aware of any clauses of that nature within the agreement at all or not?
So yes, we always put in exit clauses in the contract, and there are a number of those. So one could be performance related, for example, and one of them would carry exit fees on our behalf if we chose to exit early. I think I'm not sure how much we should revisit the decision on now the contract has been signed and we've already made that decision. I'm not sure how valuable it will be in revisiting that decision, but it would have a cost associated and our exit clauses if we need to.
Thank you. Anybody else got anything to say at this point of the meeting? Obviously, we've got the later exclusion. Okay, so if everyone's happy, we'll probably then move on. We've got a recommendation on this bit, but do we then? I'm just going to double check. Do we have to then redo the recommendation?
No, let's go to the exempt part.
So we'll go straight to the exempt part and then come back to the recommendation. Thank you. Right, okay, I'll go to the exclusion of press and public. I move that the press and public be excluded from the meeting for the remaining items of business because otherwise information which is exempt information by virtue of paragraph 3 of part 1 of schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972 as amended by the Local Government Access to Information Variation Order 2006 would be disclosed to them. I see no objection to that. So